Hello, welcome to the Fifth Star. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Albert.
And this is a podcast where we're trying to find our next 5-star movie. And when we find that movie, this podcast will enter the black bag. Wow, it's like you knew what I was going to say.
I knew what you were going to say. So today we're reviewing Black Bag, which is directed by Steven Soderbergh. And it stars Michael Fassbender, who plays a British spy who has to find a mole in the organization. And there are 5 subjects, one of whom is his own wife. But before we get into it, we each secretly wrote down our rating. And we like to guess what we think each other gave it.
Yep.
So, Jamie, I'm going to guess that you gave it a 3.5
Okay.
out of 5 stars.
I'm going to guess you gave it a 3.
Okay, 3.0.
I think I did this last time too.
And then...
But 3 is a good guess because it is the average in the curve.
Hey, by definition, most movies are average, right?
Most movies are going to be a 3.
Yeah. We will reveal our scores after we give our initial spoiler-free thoughts. So, Jamie, what did you think of Black Bag?
So, it was a mixed bag.
Oh, no.
This
I
Black
got it
Bag.
wrong.
It was very mixed because, in terms of the characters and dialogue, I really enjoyed it. Thought it was really good. Plot-wise, it was kind of a mess. It was sort of all over the place. It was difficult to follow. I felt a little dumb, especially at the end, which I won't.
You are not dumb, Jamie.
Thank you. I won't get into the end, but there were some parts that I felt a little behind in.
Okay.
But I loved all the dinner scenes. I thought those were really well done. It gave Agatha Christie vibes, which I do really like her work.
Okay.
I'm not a super big fan of the movies, but I like her novels. She was like a big mystery writer.
Okay, that makes sense.
It kind of reminded me of the original Clue movie.
Oh, okay.
Just a little bit.
I mean, it is a whodunit, right? The premise is him trying to figure out who it is. And very early on, essentially at the beginning of the movie, one of the first things that happens is he brings all the suspects together.
Yeah.
And
they have a dinner.
Yeah. And I thought that scene was like really fun.
It was really well done.
Yeah. Because you're like, oh, who means what, and who's what's happening under
what's the subtext?
Yeah, exactly.
And
and you're everyone's like kind of casting doubt on different people, and there's suspicious activity, and you're trying to read into everything.
Yeah. And all the characters were very colorful, I would say. They each had very distinct, I don't know if features is the right word, but distinct characteristics that kind of set them apart and made them fun to watch. At least I found them fun to watch.
Yeah, I think all the characters were fairly interesting, but I did think some were a lot more interesting and colorful than others. But I did think it was a good cast.
Yeah.
Like it was a fun cast of people. I really like Freddie, played by Tom Burke. And he's kind of been, under the radar. Like I've been seeing him in more movies, but it's hard for me to just automatically pinpoint oh yeah, that's Tom Burke. It's not like Michael Fassbender,
right? Where
he's has that brand recognition,
right?
But having seen him in Furiosa, and then recently I watched him play Orson Welles in Mank, which is he did a good job in that, and so kind of seeing him here pop up and he gave he played a colorful character, and it's interesting because in the dinner scene, you have Michael Fassbender who plays George, and then his wife, Kate Blanchett, right? So they're kind of a good, fun, dynamic power couple.
Yeah.
Not only in the story, but even as actors.
Yeah. They're so powerful.
Exactly. And then you have the other 4, but they're broken up into pair couples also. And so you have all the work kind of spy suspicious stuff, but also all the relational drama.
Yeah.
And that was kind of fun too.
I would also say, this is sort of getting away from conversation about plot and character, but the costumes were so nice.
Okay.
I loved their little outfits.
I mean, it's very sleek.
Burberry ad.
Yeah.
And when he went, when George, Michael Fassbender's character, goes fishing, he's got his little fishing outfit.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was very pleasing to the eye just to look at all their costumes.
I mean, even the production value, his kitchen and
That house was so cool with the tree in the middle like that. Did you notice that?
No.
There's like there's this whole window thing in the middle of their house, and in the middle of that, there's like a tree growing through their home.
Yeah.
At least that's what it looks like.
It's not like just a typical backyard. Yeah. And, it's not just the costuming for the sake of like the characters, but it's the whole movie has that kind of stylish like
flair.
Vibe to it. Yeah, flair. To me, this movie reminded me of, it's Steven Soderbergh, so it reminded me of Ocean's 11.
Okay.
And some of the kind of quippy dialogue, and it's a very British version of that. But yeah, so there's that kind of, instead of like heist, it's like spies.
Yeah.
But there's that kind of suave, sleek, sexy, like that kind of style.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that part of it. But I think for me, I was oppositely kind of mixed because I thought the plot was in a way too predictable. So
really, you predicted it?
Yeah, we'll get into it, after we reveal our scores later and spoilers. But it was, I thought, semi predictable. But I say semi because what my initial gut thoughts were ended up being right. But it did enough to throw me off a little bit throughout.
Okay.
Because there's constantly, like I think to your point, there's constantly things and reveals and things happening.
It's confusing events.
Yeah.
Like I was befuddled almost the whole time.
Yeah. And
so that's why I could not predict it.
I think that keeps you on your toes because whatever I thought I knew, something else would be introduced. And then it's like, oh, wait, like maybe it's this then. Maybe I'm wrong, And then, so that did kind of keep me on my toes a little bit. But then in the end, I kind of felt like, oh, okay.
I'll be honest, though, I wasn't really even trying to figure it out when I was watching it.
Yeah.
I was just kind of along for the ride. And I wasn't putting on my detective hat for this one for some reason.
Yeah.
Maybe because I was so distracted by the characters. And I wasn't trying to figure it out.
And I do think the movie doesn't take itself too seriously in terms of the thing itself. It's very much kind of MacGuffin-y. Like we don't even really understand what they're looking for and why.
What Severus is.
Yeah, like
they mention it immediately.
Yeah,
but they never explain it.
Pretty inconsequential. It feels like in the after all of it. So
they hint at it, but yeah.
Yeah, and so I do think it was made more for the vibe and the style of it. But I guess it's just kind of the way I watch movies. Like if the plot, which is important to me, is about trying to find a mole, I can't help but keep like trying to figure that out. And how they end up unpacking all that does impact like my overall enjoyment of it. And I thought that part kind of was a little bit of a letdown.
Well, the movie went a very different direction than I thought it would.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
okay.
I'll get more into it later.
Okay.
But one more comment I'll make before we get into spoilers is I was very irritated by the bloom effect.
Oh my gosh.
All the lighting.
Same as me, yes.
I was so distracted by it, and
all
I didn't
the highlights,
think it looked good.
Yeah, all the highlights, like whenever there was like something in the window or like the scene, like
or like a light behind the head.
Yeah, it was so overblown, kind of like halo, like bloom effect. So the cinematographer on this was Peter Andrews. Which is
why are you quoting that?
Because it is a pseudonym for Steven Soderbergh. And apparently he does this. I didn't actually know. I've seen a bunch of his movies. I think, especially as a lot of his older stuff. But apparently he's been doing this for a lot of his career. But Peter Andrews is actually the given name of his father.
Okay.
So he uses that. I think that's kind of sweet. And then he also edited the movie under Mary Ann Bernard, who's the given name for his mom.
Why?
Yeah. So he kind of credits, I guess, his mom and his dad. But it was him who shot it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you kind of have him to blame.
Why did he do all of that? It was like, especially the therapy sessions with the windows blowing out.
I agree. It was like, so distracting.
We need like ND filters on the windows.
Yeah. Man. And, I think there are times when it kind of worked, like indoors, the dinner scene, you had all the candles and you kind of had some glow off of that.
That kind of looked cool.
Yeah, it kind of gave like a certain polish and veneer over.
Or like a warmth.
Yeah, but there were a lot of times, especially exteriors and, bright windows and things like that, where I was like, oh, this is like just
Too
really
much.
distracting.
Yeah, it's like hazing the
Yeah.
whole shot and the people. Yeah. So
Um,
that was a little pet peeve of mine, but
yeah. What did you think of the concept of the black bag, which also is kind of introduced early, which is because, this couple, they're both spies. When they ask each other something that they can't talk about because it's related to the mission, they just say black bag, right?
Right.
And so it creates this, I mean, really at the end of the day, the movie, I think, is trying to focus on this marriage and relationship and
how to make relationships work.
Exactly, especially when both people are trained liars.
Yeah.
And you have this easy excuse related to your job where you can just blame it on that and lie. Yeah.
And there's a lot of infidelity themes in this.
Yes. So how do you trust each other? And they, literally kind of address this head on in certain scenes. So what did you think of this concept of a black bag?
Well, I thought it was
in terms of marriage. I
thought that was the MacGuffin. I thought the black bag was the MacGuffin because I thought the movie was going to be like all about that, but then it ended up being
kind of a side thing.
Yeah, kind of like a oh, can't talk about it, black bag. Yeah. Oh, confidential.
But do you think
that would
okay for in a marriage that there's something like a black bag?
That would be insanely difficult. I think if it were me, I would have a really hard time with the black bag thing.
Yeah.
But I also hate lies and secrets.
Yeah.
So I think that mentality just wouldn't work.
So, I mean, I agree. So in my marriage, like we have a kind of, we're just completely honest with each other. We don't hide each other, anything from each other kind of policy.
Right.
But apparently this is kind of a more American thing. And like in Europe, I heard somewhere that it's a little bit more like they're kind of like think it's weird that Americans have this view of marriage like you have to tell each other everything. It's like this very kind of therapeutic. You at least have to tell them
the important things, which are probably black bag things.
Yeah, I guess. But apparently, in certain other kind of cultures, it's not really as much of a, marriage is all about 100% transparency and every, to the max. It's like, it's okay that you kind of have different spaces of, areas that you don't kind of talk about or whatever. Which, I think is kind of weird. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that.
But it's interesting because in the movie, I really did understand the trust between the couple. Like,
but it's complicated.
It is complicated.
Is it really trust?
It's love for sure.
Yes. At the end of the day, I think there is a certain kind of stopgap of faith and trust. But there's a lot of gray.
They did a good job portraying that, though, the actors. Fassbender and Blanchett,
I think them two really did a good job.
They did great, yeah.
Yeah, like the script helped. I thought they were very good together.
They were believable.
Yeah. I think I wish, though, that the movie focused more on that and less on the kind of upfront whodunit kind of thing.
I could see that, yeah.
Yeah, because I think I didn't feel like I had enough of that fleshed out. They would drop in parts of it thematically for it to be there and present. But it wasn't like the main thing I'm walking away with because I'm kind of focused by all this flashy stuff they're doing about
and the amount of
story.
Screen time they actually shared was very little,
Yeah. And so it kind of was like, I don't know, it's like a James Bondy version of Mr. and Mrs. Smith crossed with like Ocean's 11 styling. Like was kind of how I felt about all of it.
Crossed with Agatha Christie or Clue.
Yeah. Like in the house among friends and...
Yeah.
Did
I nail it? Did you get?
You did nail it. So we'll reveal. You guessed that I would give it a 3.0 out of 5, and I did give it a 3.0 out of 5.
Better at this.
I will say I was a little on the high 3.0.
Okay.
I was kind of like, is it a 3.5? But yeah.
You guessed I'd give it a 3.5, and
you gave it a 3.
3.5.
Oh wait! I thought okay.
We both got it.
Yeah.
I did because same as you, I was like, this feels like it's a 3, but it's a high 3.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I think I'm going to give it a low 3.5 because I think the writing and the acting, and I enjoyed the dinner scene so much that I was like, this is a 3.5. Like, it's better than an average.
Okay.
Even though I was frustrated and a little confused by the plot.
Okay.
I was like, ultimately, I think it's still better than an average movie.
Okay. So
but not by much.
we will get into a full spoiler breakdown, but in case you haven't seen it, go watch the movie.
Yeah.
Then come back and join us for the full breakdown.
Yeah.
But would you recommend this movie for
I think
somebody?
I would recommend it to people who enjoy this specific genre, like WHODUNNIT, if you really like WHODUNNIT, or conspiracy, mystery type things. This is fun. Or spy movies.
Yeah.
Like, I think this was a fun one.
I would say
I think Clue fans would like it, maybe.
Yeah, I would say spy, but not action, more like spy drama.
Yeah, I expected there to be more action.
Yeah, I
was kind of surprised.
It's very much just kind of characters, drama, personal thriller type thing.
Yeah.
I also think anyone who's really into just cool style, sleek vibe type movies.
Yeah, it was super vibey.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's kind of the fun part of it.
I enjoyed kind of just being in that world for a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got so confused by the end.
So
let's talk about the end. Yes. It was so fast. Like, we do the polymorph.
Yeah.
The polygraph. We do the polygraph check and then immediately go back to dinner at their house. Except no dinner this time. And Fassbender just starts very quickly spewing out what happened.
Kind of puts all the cards out right away.
Yeah, and I was kind of lost because I was like, whoa. I'm still catching up that Freddie and Zoe were having an affair. I didn't see that coming, even though they did hint at it a lot. But I was reeling from that I wasn't paying attention to all the rest of it. And then when they revealed that James was the one behind it all, but then I got so confused about how the therapist was involved. So what I did is afterwards I looked it up and I was like, okay, explain the ending.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay, so the therapist couldn't break her confidentiality, so she instead told Freddie, and then Freddie was, I guess, upset that he didn't get the promotion that James got, so he tried to frame Fassbender and Blanchett out of jealousy. Like,
I didn't know if that's what I thought.
He tried to frame them. He was trying to put it on them too, and I was like, instead of revealing who took Severus, he was like, he ended up participating in the framing, and I was like, that's kind of weak, but.
Yeah, so I think for me, that first dinner scene happens, and I'm like, okay, cool. We got all the players in the room.
Yeah.
And then...
Except Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, that's true. My issue is this. In the whodunit trope, the trope of whodunit movies is the person who seems the most suspicious is never the person, especially in the beginning of the movie.
Okay.
So whoever is being seen as the most suspicious it's never that person. And then usually the person who seems least suspicious ends up being that person. So first of all the suspicion is cast on Cate Blanchett in the beginning.
Yes.
And as the whole first act of it and all of that is clearly all based on that. And then that gets into the theme of Michael Fassbender, and it's like, oh, he's like, now he's spying on his wife, and, but is he going to really like sell her out if she ends up being bad? And that's supposed to be the whole theme, right? That's kind of the tagline of the movie. With the movie ticket thing he finds in there, I'm like, that's clearly like someone planted that.
Okay.
Yeah. So to me, right from the get-go, it was like, Cate Blanchett is not the one.
Who's the least innocent? Who's the least suspicious?
Then in the dinner scene, the person who seemed secondarily most suspicious was, I thought, Clarissa.
No, Freddie.
Her and Freddie. So now Freddie also, he seems very suspicious.
So
right?
I was the most suspicious of him.
Yeah. So he seems very suspicious. And then to me, I'm like, okay, well, he's just a dummy, and he just acts like that, and therefore like he's not it. Like he just acts that way suspiciously, but it's someone who's a lot smarter and calculated who's going to be the bad person, right? So then I'm like, it's got to be one of the girls, maybe. So then I was thinking Clarissa because I thought, oh, when she says, oh, are you ready to polygraph me? You know, I was like, oh, okay. Maybe like the fact that she was that forward with it is like the clue being dropped to the audience right up front. So I kind of had my eye on her, but really my main person was James because he was the quietest. He was the least developed throughout that whole scene. He just kind of was there. And then right before the dinner, Michael Fassbender and Freddie are having a thing. And then Freddie's like kind of peeved that Michael Fassbender nominated James for like this promotion for the CIA or whatever. And then Freddie goes, well, it's fine because, you know, like he's the smarter one anyway and stuff like that. So immediately when that gets stated, I'm like, oh, this James guy, he's probably the bad guy.
I would have argued
because he's being posed as the goody two shoes, like the smart guy.
Yeah,
you know, and he's
Zoe
really
was too, though. I was least suspicious of Zoe.
Least suspicious of her?
Oh yeah.
So
she was definitely the least sus.
Yeah, so I was also kind of like, what's going on with her? She's really quiet too, and she
was
seems
all about morality and goody two shoes.
Yeah,
had the little cross.
Yeah, and so I think I was very much like, okay, I think it's James. It might be Clarissa. As the movie unfolds, I think with Zoe, I was kind of like, there's something going on with her, but when they start talking about how, you know, Freddie's like has infidelity and then Clarissa calls him out on it and was like, oh, whatever. And then Michael Fassbender basically outs him, like someone he's meeting up with. Immediately my first thought was, oh, it's Zoe. He's hooking up with Zoe.
Why?
Just because she's this is a small movie.
Yeah.
And it's all about these like, oh, who's what? People aren't what they seem. So for him to be like cheating on Clarissa with some rando person we haven't met to me seems kind of pointless versus like, oh, it's the other girl in the room, you know? So I was already thinking like, okay, she's in on it somehow. But so later at the end when that affair gets announced, I was kind of like, oh, okay, that's, you know.
See, I was in a completely different mindset. Okay. Because when I was watching it, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is a whodunit. I was actually thinking that I fell for it. I thought Cate Blanchett was. Oh. And I thought it was going to turn into Mr. and Mrs. Smith action movie.
See, I would have liked that.
I was expecting it to turn into an action movie.
It would have been about their relationship.
I thought it was going to be about them, like, who's going to out the other first.
Yeah, that would have been so much more interesting. And it makes the theme that
that's
they're
why
teasing.
I couldn't predict the end, though. Oh. Because I was like, for sure, this is what's going to happen.
It was just so, like, they were telegraphing Cate Blanchett so hard. I was like, it's obviously not her.
Which is why I thought it was Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
So when, to me, like, the end of the first act, essentially, Michael Fassbender isn't really sure of if he thinks it could be his wife or not.
Yeah.
And then James out of nowhere comes to him and says, oh, actually, there's this secret like account with $7 million. And
I thought he was just a try hard. But yeah.
I was like, the moment that he was, and then he said like no one else knows, like that he's casting blame on the person we're supposed to think is wrong and be deceived into believing is bad.
Yeah.
I was like, it's James. So ever since then, I thought it was kind of obvious that it's like, oh, why would he know that or think that? I mean, you know, like he just comes out of nowhere and then he's like trying to, you know, cast doubt on this person. And
I definitely felt like he gave bad guy vibes in the therapy session.
Yeah, but that scene was really fun. I thought those bad guy. It was like one of the best breakup scenes I think I've ever seen written. Yeah.
But you were still sus of him, even though he was like obviously such a bad guy in that scene.
So that's where like I would feel confident, and then these other things would happen, and then Clarissa kept throwing me off because she would be like when the redirect happened and the bad guy got away. I was like, who else knows except Clarissa, you know? So I was like, oh no, is she bad? But I couldn't figure out why. Like I couldn't really figure out how that worked. And that's why I thought I was confused by it, you know? And so it would throw confusion into it. The polygraph scene also, like, I was like, okay, she's beating the test, right? But then they call it out and then it's done like playfully. So I'm like, okay, I think she's just like that. She's just being herself.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of having fun with it. But that scene was really well edited, I thought. It was fun. Like
the polygraph scene?
Yeah, how they would, like, he would ask a question to someone and it'll cut to someone else answering. And you're like, okay, like what's going on? You're trying to track with it. But
and then he like reveals what all of his questions meant.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh wow, it's all subtext.
Yeah. And so I did think the movie still did a really good enough job of keeping you on your toes that I never felt like, oh, I know 100%. I felt like, oh, I think I'm pretty sure what's going on.
Yeah.
But I kept getting thrown off here and there. That was all fine. But then when the reveals happen and it ends up being one of those things exactly, it ends up kind of feeling like, oh, okay, I guess it wasn't, I don't know. So it was just kind of was like a little flat at the end for me, you know? And then I was like, well, but it really wasn't about that. But then I wish it just focused on that anyway. I would have definitely loved it ended up being Cate Blanchett, because after all of that happens and then they team up and then they're like, oh, we're good. I was like, oh man, now if it ends up being her, that would be so good. Like the person that they try to make you think it was, then they throw enough confusion and doubt to make you come off of her, and that it actually does still end up being her. That would have been so good. And then he's really conflicted about what to do. And
well, and that's why I thought it was going, because she keeps asking him like, you know, would you kill for me, or like, would you lie to me, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then she said, only if I had to, or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, maybe she's not a bad guy, but maybe their missions are opposite.
Yeah.
And they need to, I don't know, find middle ground. And maybe they're going to end the movie compromising somehow or pulling the other to the other side. And I thought it was going to be more of that, like convincing the other to join their team. Or maybe they both just run away and leave it all behind them. Leave the spy life behind them.
Or they take everyone down, which is kind of what they do.
A little bit. Yeah. So I definitely think that my expectations were way off. So, and which is funny because I went into this kind of blind too.
Oh.
Like I didn't really watch. Trailer? Not really. I watched like a clip of the trailer without audio. And so I really had no idea.
For this kind of movie, it's like pretty much all just scenes of people talking.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, this is probably like a spy movie.
Yeah.
And so I went into it thinking, you know, they're going to go on some crazy mission. But then it's like a whodunit. And I don't know. I wasn't thinking about trying to solve it.
Okay. I can't turn it off when it's like, this is the problem I'm having with Severance right now, right? It's
interesting.
It's like the whole thing is about this mystery, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to figure it out. I cannot think about anything else.
Yeah, that one's more obviously like they're trying to get you to figure it out. But
and I will, so I will say then with this movie, if you kind of see the whole spycraft stuff as secondary, I think it's a much more enjoyable movie.
Yeah,
I still think it could have been better. I think what you were suggesting would have been a much more interesting take on it. Because at the end of the day, like, I don't care who James is.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it doesn't mean it's not so shocking that, like, if Clarissa ended up being the bad person, like that would have been much more shocking because she had such great scenes. She seemed so like well fleshed out. Like James seemed the most generic of everyone.
Well, and then when they revealed that it was James, I also wasn't surprised, but that's because he felt like such a bad guy.
Yeah.
That you were kind of like, yeah, I want you to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
You're terrible.
Yeah. Whereas if it ended up being like Clarissa or Zoe, it would have been much like, more shocking.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I think you were like much more won over by them throughout the movie.
It's true. Would you give it a 3.25?
I was thinking that. I think I was so torn that if we did quarters, I think I would give it a 3.25. So there you go.
All right.
3.25.
I guess I would also be a 3.25.
Oh.
We'll meet in the middle.
Wow, we were exactly.
We compromised.
Well, there you have it, Black Bag.
Yep.
Check it out and let us know what you thought if you saw it.
You can follow us on YouTube, Letterboxd, Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
And next week, we're going to actually do something we've been wanting to do for a while. Some of you guys have asked for, is we're going to explain our rating system. Yeah, what the 3 or the 3.5 means for us and how we kind of go about rating. So join us next week as we continue our quest for the 5th star.